All right, we are live on Facebook, live on Instagram. So what's up, PT on Ice Daily Show? This is Dr. Jordan Berry. I'm live for another Clinical Tuesday. So today, we're continuing our two-part series of the thoracolumbar junction, mobility versus motor control. Okay, mobility versus motor control. So before we get rolling today, I just want to mention a few of the live courses that we have coming up. So we've got this coming weekend, April 24th and 25th, we've got lumbar spine management down in Greenville, South Carolina at Onward Greenville. Then the following week, we've got lumbar spine management as well out in Denver, Colorado at Onward Denver. And then that same weekend, May 1 and 2, we've got Jason up in St. Paul, Minnesota, doing a bike fit. So again, today, Clinical Tuesday, talking about the thoracolumbar junction, mobility versus motor control. This is part 2 of the two-part series that we started a few weeks back. That first episode was on March 16th. March 16th, if you want to go back and check that out, where we talk a little bit about MAIGNES syndrome, M-A-I-G-N-E-S, or thoracolumbar dysfunction. And we go through a bit of why it can happen, and then we talked about mobility exercises for that. So when we're thinking about the thoracolumbar junction, again, just to review a couple of things that we talked about on the first episode, I believe that area can become dysfunctional for two main reasons. Either someone does not have enough mobility in that area, and it's getting repetitively overstressed. So we use the example of the golfer, right, who's during the swing putting a lot of rotational stress through the spine, and if the thoracolumbar junction is stiff, then that area can become sensitive and irritated and cause some of those symptoms, either down the leg, down the back, in the groin, right, all those different areas that the thoracolumbar junction can refer to. So that was the first part of why that area can become dysfunctional, and we talked about a few mobility exercises that we could do. However, the other end of the spectrum is someone who maybe has too much mobility in that area, or a lot of mobility that they're having a hard time controlling. Think about the athlete doing an overhead press, where if that athlete is lacking a bit of midline stability, right, then we might see the thoracolumbar junction being used as a hinge point, where when that person presses up, we see a lot of overextension at the thoracolumbar junction, because they're using that area to gain some stability in that overhead position. So for today, we're going to go over those motor control drills. Again, the opposite end of the spectrum. We're assuming someone lacks a bit of midline stability, and the TLJ is getting overstressed because the majority of the motion is being put into that area. Okay, so we're going to go over my favorite 4 exercises to gain some motor control in that area. And really what we're talking about here is anti-extension exercises. Anti-extension exercises. Really putting the athlete or individual in a position where they can't use that area as the hinge point in order to develop some control around that area. So Kelsey's going to help us out. She's going to demo these 4 movements. I'm going to talk through exactly what we're looking for. Okay, let's make sure we can see right here. So bring the camera down a bit. Okay, perfect. So the first exercise is going to be a supine 90-90 Y raise. Okay, so Kelsey's going to be using crossover symmetry. She's got the bands here. Get myself out of the way so everyone can see. So Kelsey in this position, so it's 90-90 because her hips are flexed to 90 degrees, her knees are flexed to 90 degrees. And the cue is to press your low back into the floor. So what we don't want to see here is any overextension from the low back. So the whole point is to, right, take out the extension in the lumbar spine so that we can work the upper thoracic spine and work not only some motion or movement in the upper thoracic spine, but also gain some control. So Kelsey's going to press her low back into the ground and then pull arms overhead while maintaining that position here. What you'll see in a lot of athletes is they want to extend the low back as the arms come into that overhead position. Yeah, but we want to cue either ribs down, press your back into the ground, maintain that position while the arms come overhead. Beautiful. So that was our supine 90-90 Y raise. Up next, we have our banded hollow rock position. Our banded hollow rock position. So I use this, again, in a lot of fitness athletes, a lot of CrossFit athletes as well, who need to gain some stability in the midline that can translate to really a lot of the different gymnastics position, but also any overhead stability as well. So kind of the opposite now of what we just did, where the lower part of the body was stable when we were working overhead. Now it's the opposite, to where the upper part of the body is going to be stable and we're working the legs. So same cue though. Kelsey's got a little bit of tension from the band. She's pulling down just a bit, so she's got some tension on the lats. She's going to think about pushing her low back into the ground, maintaining that position, while she brings one leg out and taps that heel, and then alternates, tapping the other heel. The difficulty increases by how far out we let the leg extend. Okay, so the easiest version is just barely tapping the heel down, yep, up to the hardest version of extending that leg fully out. Again, really nice exercise that translates to some of our gymnastics positions in CrossFit, but really also just developing some motor control throughout the thoracolumbar junction. All right, up next we have our tall kneeling overhead press. Our tall kneeling overhead press. Again, think about the athlete where they're in either a strict press, a push jerk, and we see a lot of overextension in the lumbar spine that we want to train. So Kelsey has the resistance coming from behind, okay? So she's in a tall kneeling position, which is going to be more challenging anyway. The bands are coming, again, from behind her, so they're trying to pull her backwards. So as she presses up, she's thinking about keeping her ribs down here, okay? And not allowing, go ahead and show the fault, not allowing that lumbar extension to happen. Yep, so we keep ribs down, punch straight up, and maintain a nice solid midline position there. Difficulty comes from either using bands that are higher resistance or just walking out a bit. So now we've got more resistance trying to pull Kelsey back into that extended position. Okay, lastly, we have a band resisted squat. A band resisted squat. So I love this exercise for the athlete. Let me move this camera over here so we can see a little bit better. I love this exercise for the athlete where we see a lot of extension in the squat position. Okay, so we want to train out some of that extension as we descend into the squat. So Kelsey has a band, again, right around the thoracolumbar junction. It's going to act as a cue because the band is trying to pull her in to what we don't want to see, right? The band is trying to pull her into more extension. What she's going to do is just add, no, you're good. Yep, just add a bit of resistance against the band. Yep, so let the band pull your back into extension. She's going to counter that, just pushing just a bit into the band. She's going to maintain that tension as she descends into a squat. Again, the band is trying to pull her in. So in the bottom right there, let that band pull you in. This is what we don't want to see, right? That overextension here. So we can just push, yep, just push back just a little bit into the band. That's just cueing a little bit more of a global neutral position in the spine instead of using that TLJ at a hinge point. And you can add, again, add kettlebell to this as a goblet squat. There's multiple ways to progress it. Thanks, Kels. So again, just to review, for the thoracolumbar junction, there's two main areas there are two main reasons why that area can get overstressed. One is either not enough mobility, so we want to gain some mobility and motion in that area, versus the athlete, like what we talked about today, where maybe they have plenty of mobility, they're just having a hard time controlling it. So we want to use bands or some form of external cue to develop some control in that position. Call them anti-extension movements. Okay, that's all for today. I appreciate everyone sticking around for another Clinical Tuesday. Have a great day in the clinic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.